Aloha, I'm Tyrell from Hawaii, and I just wanted to take some time to share how my life has changed since meeting Jesus. I was just a kid, a college student, when God called me. Growing up in my family, I love my family. Growing up, my parents would take us to church, and when we turned 18, my parents gave us the choice to continue on my spiritual journey. I flew to Oregon to attend a university, and while there, I took part in everything that the college life had to offer. I didn't go to church. I sought after friends, parties. Just before the end of my sophomore year, a friend of mine asked me if I would accompany them to a dance, and I went. I was knocked unconscious, and I was actually sexually assaulted in a fraternity house. The day that happened, I actually ran all the way home in the rain, and I wondered where was God to allow that to happen to me. So I sat in silence in my dorm. I didn't tell anybody what happened, not even my family. And one day my dad called out of the blue. Me and my mom just filled all the apartment with all of the new things for my new apartment. And I remember that call. My dad came on the line. He asked me if I'm okay and if I want to come home. And I said yes. Him not even knowing what happened to me. He said, give the phone back to your mother. And he said, change Ui's flight and bring her home. And so one day I had a chance meeting. I was at the mall at Pearl Ridge, and I was in a jewelry store. I just ended it with my boyfriend, and as I'm walking out of the mall, out of a store, I had a chance meeting with these two beautiful women. They crossed my path and invited me to study the Bible and learn about Jesus. He died on the cross in the hopes that I would want a relationship with him. I couldn't believe it. I said, who would sacrifice it all? What kind of person, what kind of man would love that way? And so when I heard the gospel and the truth that Jesus died for me, that it wasn't just his duty, it wasn't just something that he was supposed to do, but it was something out of his loving kindness for me. All I could do is surrender to the call and make Jesus Lord of my life. Since that time, God has really been there. His faithful love has been there through thick and thin. Through the church, I actually started dating, and I met my husband. We had 3 children. But I did suffer loss, even as a Christian. I miscarried our first child. I got cancer while the kids were still young. But somehow I knew through it all, God is there. I had hope in God, hope in Jesus, that he's not going to give me more than I can bear. And then, one day, 20 plus years into my marriage, I think me and my husband started drifting apart. We got busy with life and the demands of life. I wasn't in my word as much. We weren't being a part of the fellowship. Instead, I let the worries of life, get, the worries, the storms of life, choke me out. So there wasn't any more room for God. Little by little, my heart started getting hard again. And then one day, after 20 some years of marriage, my husband decided to leave. And I remember having that same conversation with God, like, why would you allow this to happen? I surrendered, I gave my life to you, yet I don't know if I can bear this one. I really don't. I don't think I can bear this one, Lord. And I remember one day, after saying that to myself one day, After the kids went to bed, I opened my Bible back up. Gosh, it seemed like after a long time. And the first scripture that I read, I just propped it open, and Isaiah 54 appeared. He said he will rebuild my life. He'll rebuild it into a beautiful city. And that the promises that he shared with me in this verse was so life-giving. It brought me a lot of hope in a dark time where I didn't think I could go on. And so from that day, I decided, you know what, every day I'm going to do life, come back to God and read. Even though I was so brokenhearted, I was able to forgive. Even though I was hurt, I was able to have hope because he comforted me. Even though we still had bills to pay and now I have one income, I knew that the Lord would provide because he promised me he would in his word. So I'm just very grateful on how God moves and works. Everything he does is very purposeful. I look back now and see that had I not been in the relationships that I was in, had I not gone through the things that I went through in Oregon, had I not said yes to that call when my dad said, "Do you want to come home?" I would have never come back to the islands. I would have never had that chance meeting that God says that he determines the time and place where he calls each one of us. And so I'm so thankful for this time that I can share with you how Jesus changed my life.